Hello there, and welcome to Lesson 3 on this series on building a game in Unity. This was created for the students at Saturday Academy. I am Will Patillo, and in this lesson we're going to start getting into some basic scripting to add some more interactivity to our world. Now, some of the things that I'm going to be building in this series are repeats of another playlist I've built earlier called Unity Fundamentals. So if you end up watching both playlists, I'll just leave it to you to skip over the parts that are repetitive. So what I'm going to be building towards is to have this AI third-person controller. Right now he's just following the player. What I would like to have happen is have them patrol between a number of different points, and when they see the player, to then follow the player. And if the player manages to lose them or get away far enough away, then the AI character will go back to patrolling. Now that's a little bit complicated, so I'm going to build a couple of simpler building blocks that will seem unrelated at first, but will work towards that end goal. And to start with, I'm going to create a pickup item. Actually, first I'll just disable that AI character so they're not getting in the way. I'm going to create a pickup item. I'll just go game object, 3D object, and let's just make a sphere, and I'll shrink it down a little, so maybe 0.2 by 0.2 by 0.2, and this will just be something that the player can run into and it disappears. I'm going to start by creating a script, and just to keep things organized, I'm going to right click an empty space here, create folder, and call it scripts. And inside this folder, right click, create C# script, and we call this ContactEvent. Because if you think about when this thing will disappear, it'll be when the player makes contact with it. Double click on this to open it up. One more thing before I start adding anything to the script though, because it's a very easy step to forget, is I'm going to attach this contact event to this sphere. So just attach it right there so I can click and drag so that I see a blue line. Alternatively, I can use add component and then start typing in the name of it until I see it on the list. Make sure you only have one copy of this component, of this contact event component, attached to your sphere, which I'm going to rename as pickup, by the way, just so it's a little bit more meaningful. So next I'm going to add a method into the script called void Ontriggerenter, and then in parentheses collider with a capital C and other. And then this is in the parentheses, and then an open and close curly brace. This open curly brace represents the start of this method. The closed curly brace shows where it ends. Don't worry about void, that's just something you're put at the beginning of your methods for a while. I don't think we'll be using anything else anytime soon. The Ontriggerenter is a built-in method inside of Unity. So if you look at the thing that it's attached to, it will listen for any collider where this is trigger box is checked. So go ahead and click that button so that the pickup has is trigger checked. If something collides with this collider and it's a trigger, then this event will fire. And right here, this is where a method receives arguments, is inside of the parentheses. And so Ontriggerenter, in order to work, it needs to know what has run into it. And so let's say my third-person controller has a collider on it right here, and it doesn't really matter whether this one's marked as this trigger or not for our purposes right now. So when the player runs into the sphere, the sphere's Ontriggerenter method will receive this collider in this Ontriggerenter method. So let's just test that right now. I'll say debug.log. This is just a debugging tool. It won't have any effect on the game. And collision detected with, and so that I learn more about what's colliding, I'll say other.gameObject.name. When this Ontriggerenter method fires, it'll print this message, and then also the name of, so other is this capsule collider, and then the .gameObject, we'll look at the game object that the collider is attached to, and then the .name will then get the name field of the game object. So let's test that out. So I run the game, and I switch to the console view so I can see messages that come out. And I move around, and I walk into the sphere, and I see collision detected with third-person controller. Great. And then if I walk into it again, it will show up again. So we're printing something to the console. We know that this message is firing and that the right object is being found. So let's move on to actually doing something interesting. And for now, I'm just going to have the collider disappear. Now, one way I could do that is to say gameObject.setActive false, and then put a semicolon at the end of that. And now if I run this, I can walk over here and I touch the sphere and it's gone. And actually you can see it in the game. This box has just been ticked. So that would work in terms of just picking up objects. However, right now the script is not very versatile. I can only use it to make things deactivate themselves. And I'd like to make the script be useful for more things. So instead of this, get rid of that. I'm going to go up here and say serialize field, Unity event, and on enter. And I'll explain what this is in a minute. Then next, in this Ontriggerenter, instead of that set active false, I'll say on enter dot invoke, open close parentheses and semicolon. And it's going to throw an error right now saying the type or namespace Unity event cannot be found. And that is because there is something that I forgot about. Right here at the top with the libraries, I need to say using Unity engine dot events. And now I click save, and that error should go away. So now if I look at my contact event, I see this little box has appeared. It says on enter and list is empty. And so how a Unity event works is once you have it up here, you can click the plus and make things happen when onEnter.invoke, when this line executes. So as an example, we'll make the pickup disappear. So first, in a Unity event, I have to specify what object is being affected. So the pickup is disappearing, so I'll drag that in here. And then here I say what happens to the pickup. So I look into this function list, and there's a lot of options here. And I'm going to go with gameObject set active and leave the box unticked. So this will have the effect of when this line executes, it will effectively tick this box and make it go away. Exactly the same as what we were using through code. So I'm going to test that now. And I walk into the sphere, and it disappears. Now, the value of going through these extra steps of using a Unity event and invoking it, rather than just setting the object inactive directly, well, there's lots, but for example, I could, instead of making the object disappear, I could just disable the collider only. So, for example, I could walk into, so if I walk into it, the collider has just been disabled, see that box has been unticked, but it's still visible. Alternatively, I could make it invisible but keep the collider active, or I could do any number of things to this pickup object. I could also, instead of deactivating the pickup, I could say bring my AI third-person controller character back, and when the pickup is touched, and I'm going to move this character back a little bit, when the pickup is touched, I could make the AI character disappear. So I just go to their game object, set active, false, and I just have a different object dragged in here, so instead of the pickup, it's the AI third-person controller. And now when I walk into the pickup, the third-person controller, the AI third-person controller is gone. So it's a lot more versatile, and not only that can it affect any component of any object, it can also affect multiple things. So if I click the plus, and now I have two things present, I can make the AI third-person controller disappear and also the pickup disappear. So click here. Okay, you have this AI character is following me, and now I touch the pickup, and they're both gone. So with this Unity event, I can just use the same code and use the same code in a lot of different places and do a lot of different things. So I'll just go back to only having the pickup disappear, and so I can get rid of this. I'll just have the AI third person action selected so that it's in blue. Just click here, and then click the minus, and now it's just back to the pickup disappearing. And I'll make the AI third-person controller gone just in the scene view again. Alright, so that's one thing. Next, I'm going to create a teleport that allows the player to, when it touches it, they'll jump to the other side of the river. Well, let's move this pickup aside for now. And create a new 3D object, and I'll go with a let's go with a cylinder, and I'll shrink it down a little on the one. Actually, this full one, that's fine. Let's create a cylinder, and I'll call this a hit F2 teleport. Then I'll create another one by clicking it and pressing Control D, and then I'll move it to the other side of the river. Alright, that looks positioned reasonably well. So the idea of this, once the player touches it, they jump to the other side of the river. Now, first of all, to kick off the whole process, I'm going to set this to trigger, and I'm going to add my contact event to it, because something is going to happen when I touch it. So it's going to need a contact event. And then next, in this contact event, I'm going to need to call something that makes the character move somewhere else. But that means we need another script that makes a thing move to another place. So I'm going to create a new script by going back in my scripts folder, right-click, create, C# script, and I'm going to call this JumpToPosition. Right, and open it up. And once again, I'm going to get rid of my start and update methods, get rid of system collections and system collections generic. We'll make sure everything is saved. Also, I don't really need this debug line anymore. I just use these double forward slashes to comment it out in case I need to bring this line back again. That'd make it very easy. I don't have to retype it. But this way, the compiler will ignore it. Public void jump to location, and then in its argument field I'll put in transform and location. And then in this jump to location, say transform.position equals location.position. Just like that. Now I'll attach this jump to position to the player. So third person character controller, attach this jump to position script on them. So this script right here is, you can think of it as giving the player the ability to jump to a specific point. So how this will work is the player will, because the script is attached to them, will receive a location, and then their position will be changed to match that of the transform that's been passed in. So we'll see that working in a moment. I go to my this teleport right here, and so on enter, I bring in the third person controller, that is the player, and I look for the jump to position. And if you're not seeing it on this list, if you don't see jump to position here when you drag third person controller in, that's either because you didn't attach jump to position to the object, or because this jump to location isn't public. Public makes the method accessible by other scripts, such as a Unity event or anything else. But anyway, assuming that's all in place and jump to position is visible, I can now see jump to location on this list of things. So we'll click that, and now I have to tell it what location to jump towards, and I just bring in transform 1, that is this other location over here. So now if I run the game, and I walk into this teleport, and then I jump over here. Now I'd like to be able to teleport back. So I'll take this teleport, mark it as a trigger, and then add its own contact event. And on enter, bring in the same as before, bring in the third person controller, find the jump to position, jump to location, and then bring in this first teleport back over here. So now I run the game, and I move forward, and I jump over here, and something is glitching out really poorly. And what's happening is, you see my, is because this one teleports the player over here, and this one teleports the player over here. Well, once they hit this teleport, they move to this one, and when they move over here, they're overlapping with the collider, so the contact event fires, which sends them back to this teleport, and then they're overlapping with the collider, so that contact event fires, which teleports them back over here, and then a continuous back and forth forever. So to fix that, I'll just make a little bit of a modification to how these teleports work. Just go into the teleport, right click, create empty, and I'm going to call this object the landing pad. And I'll move the landing pad out a little bit from the teleport. This maybe over here is fine. Or, yeah, 2 away. And then do the same thing for this teleport. Create empty, call it a landing pad, and move that out over here a little ways. Okay, and so make it a -2 on the z-axis. That'll work fine. You can put the landing pads wherever you like. Then, in this jump to location, instead of telling it to go to the other teleport, I'll have it go to the other landing pad. So teleport 1. So this teleport goes to this landing pad, this teleport goes to this landing pad. And now when I run the game, I walk into the teleport, and they jump over here. And now I walk into this teleport, and I jump back. Alright, so now I have teleports working, and then also my collectibles, using these same general purpose scripts. Now, one other potential problem with how this is built so far is that right now this contact event is going to fire whenever anything runs into it. I'm not specifically checking that the player is running into it. So that means if, say, the AI third-person character was to run into this teleport, and I'll just make that happen automatically by dragging this into its target so it runs over to it. Take its time. Okay, it's not running into it, so I'll just force that. The AI character just ran into this teleport, and that caused the player to jump over here, and that's kind of strange. So we're going to add a little bit of a check to the contact event to make sure that the collider running into it is actually the one that we're looking for. So I'm going to go into my contact event and add another serialized field right here, and type in game object and give its name object of interest. Then in my Ontriggerenter, go up here, say if other dot game object is not equal to object of interest, return. If the game object that the other collider is attached to does not match the game object that we're looking for, and we can drag this into the inspector right here, so I'll just go to this, deal with that right now. Teleport, it has an object of interest field. I'm going to bring in the third person controller, and I'll do the same thing with this one, and then I think I'll also do the same thing with the pickup. So if the collider that runs into it is anything else, such as the AI, then this return will exit early. So it'll go here, it'll hit this return line, and it'll leave this method before reaching this line. Now, one thing that some classes and jobs will insist on is putting open and close curly braces whenever you have an if statement. That's probably a good idea. When you only have one line inside of an if statement, then you don't technically need the curly braces, but I suppose it's probably good practice to just always use them. That way you don't have to worry about those when those exceptions are. Alright. Anyway, so let's see if that works. So I'll start by running the game, and I have my third-person controller walk into the teleport, and okay, that still works. And now I'll take my AI third-person controller. Okay, so I move them into the teleport, and now nothing is happening because they are not the object of interest. One other thing that we might want to change is, suppose there are some objects that you want anything to be able to touch. Well, this is going to be, and so let's say this this pickup right here had no particular object of interest. Anything can pick it up and cause it to deactivate itself, and that's the behavior that we want. Right now, we're going to have a bit of an error because we've left this object of interest field blank. And so let's see if I run into that little sphere. Here it is. I touch it, and nothing is happening. And the reason for that is because object of interest is null, and the player collider is not the same as null, so this fails. I'll just add to this logic right here, and object of interest not equals null. But now that I'm actually looking at it, I can show you another way of doing the same thing, which might be a little bit easier to read. Instead of this not equal, and then return early, I'll instead just give us a little bit of practice with our logical operators here. Get rid of the return line, and here I can say if the other game object is the object of interest, or the object of interest is null, then we use this onEnter.invoke, and we don't need the return line at all. And if both of these fail, if the object of interest is something that isn't null and it's also doesn't match what we're looking for, then we'll skip this line, and then effectively nothing will happen, and we don't really need to exit early at this point. So now what should happen is either my player or the AI should be able to make the pickup disappear. Let's bring my AI back. And so the pickup can also disappear if they touch the enemy. Good. However, the teleport only works if it touches the player. So let's see, it touches the player and they zip over. Whereas if the AI touches the teleport, then nothing happens. Right. So That's all for this lesson. We have our general purpose contact event and our jump to position. These are both some very general purpose and versatile scripts that you could use in a lot of different occasions. For the next lesson, we will be extending, with just a little bit of changes to our script, we're going to be using these same scripts to make our patrolling AI that can also detect and chase the player. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.